Hi, everybody.
Your thing is
Wow.
always going to be delayed, babe.
No, it's not even doing that much. Let's see. Oh, there
Talk
I
to
am.
the people.
Hi, people. Hi. Lisa's over there. Talk to the people. I got to do as I'm told today because she's not feeling well, and she can be right snarly if she's...
I'm going to kill you.
So how you guys doing? Oh, she's in there. She left. She walked away. I don't know. Oh, good evening, everybody. So last week we talked about Bigfoot. So I'm just gonna wait for Dustin's mom. You're late. I am not late. I am fashionable. That's the thing. That is what's going on here. No, we did the thing. It's like, whoa, what's going on? Because you're gonna pull this cord right out.
Oh, okay. I fixed it.
Basically Lisa has a command center over there, so we just had to move all the stuff around, and my son decided to bring home the plague or something, so we just been fighting off everybody's
stupid child.
Everybody's fine. You notice, like, when you feel like you're just about to get a cold, we've been feeling like that for everybody in the house has been feeling that way for like 3 or 4 days now. So yeah, Peggy is never early, nor is she ever late. She arrives exactly when she intends to. Exactly, Jen. Thank you. I'm glad somebody gets it. I am still on. Am I on top chat or live chat? I can't even tell on this stupid tablet. Okay. So who else here? Dustin's here. I saw him. Erica's here. Toadstool Taro, Victoria, Selkie's here. Oh, hi, Selkie. Hey, isn't it super late where you are, Selkie?
And for Debbie too. She's in the UK.
Debbie?
Yeah, Debbie Doobie Doo.
Oh, Debbie Doobie Doo. Jen, the middle-aged baby witch, is here. Dustin, don't encourage her tardiness. Oh, Donna's here because Donna just needs to be here. I need Donna to be here. I need the support. Okay. So I think Erica wants to get right to it. right to it. Okay. So the Atlantis is interesting. I was actually looking up a bunch of stuff to remind myself. I've got these too. I got some show and tells because I have this one and I have this one.
The big one is better.
Is it gonna? I'm sorry, guys. My tablet is so laggy behind everything else that I just never know what's. So these are books that I've had kicking around the house literally for years. So this one is Discover the History and Wisdom of Atlantis, Lemuria, Mu, and Other Ancient Civilizations. So this one focuses on the idea that there are multiple ancient civilizations around the world that have gone underwater for various reasons. And it looks at a lot of stuff. And we have a lot of, Incas and Atlantis. Like they've got a chapter. They've got a chapter that basically talks about almost every theory that existed right up until like the last 15 years. Like this. How old is this book? 10 years? Legendary Lands of the Celts. Is it Celts or Celts? I never know. Celts. This is India, and they have some interesting underwater stuff. But anyway, okay. So Atlantis. Okay, you guys are gonna get me on my high horse, and I'm probably just gonna babble nonstop about this one. So several theories, several things. Basically, Plato in about 300 BC wrote two things: the Critias and the Timaeus. I think I've pronounced them both wrong. Where he described a kingdom of Atlantis. So he said a whole bunch of things about Atlantis and that they went under the sea, and that's the kernel of it. So now people ever since then have been, the basketball team pronounced it wrong. It was the hard C. Okay, so K, not X. So basically what goes on with the Atlantis series is that Plato basically describes Atlantis as a land that was just outside of the Pillars of Hercules, which is a whole separate topic, and I'll touch on that a little bit, that sank under the waves after a great cataclysm as punishment. And of course, it was always all about punishment from the gods and stuff like that. So, and that started the whole thing. And basically, as Plato's writings come down through history, people are Tuna and Atlantis. That works beautifully. So that's basically where it all started. Where the controversy starts in is that Plato's story of Atlantis is he states in his writings about Atlantis that it was a kingdom that was 9,000 years before his time. So we're talking like 9,000 BC, even though most of our recorded civilizations don't go back past 4,000. I think it's 4,000. I looked it up. I can't remember the number. I forgot to write it down. So basically, so what's been going on ever since then is this giant telephone game of who were the Atlanteans, where were they, and of course,
you might be having a problem. With choppiness. Hold on.
Am I choppy? Am I doing things? Oh, I can't see this.
Yeah, we're lagging. You might have to start over in a second, hun.
Oh no! If anybody can still, yeah, I'm not even seeing the chat.
Yeah, just give it a second. You might be
guys.
Out.
Looks like this is going to be hating on me.
There's nothing running on the internet, so
the chat's done. The chat's shut down.
Refresh.
Oh, there it is. Can you guys see?
Yeah, we're being.
Video is lagging.
Yeah.
Oh
no. That's okay. I'm gonna reduce our resolution a little bit.
Lisa's trying to fix it. Can anybody hear me?
Try this now. See if it smooths out. I just brought your resolution down a bit.
Okay, Erica can see. It's not bad. We can see and hear you. Okay, sorry guys. That's just something up with that. We don't usually have a problem with our connection, so we don't know what's going on.
No.
Okay. Let me just kind of start over again. And hi to, I noticed a couple new names have showed up here. Hi to everybody who's just coming in. I am so used to not having time to say hi in other people's chats because the chat just starts going so fast that I'm still having to learn how to say hi in my own chat. So if I'm not trying to ignore anybody. Okay, yeah, she reduced the resolution a little bit, so we should be good. Yeah, I'm seeing a really horrible video on my side of things. I don't know.
It's super grainy for now because I reduced it. We'll see. Okay. We might be able to fix it in a minute.
So she'll see what's going on in case it's being okay. So basically, Plato is the first one who is credited with mentioning. Oh shoot, you've got my list, so you may have to like.
I can help you out.
Plato is the first one who is credited with having mentioned Atlantis, and almost every writer since then mentioned Atlantis as part of Plato's writings, but not really giving any indication one way or the other whether they had access to anything else that explains Atlantis. So you check the plug.
Plug's good. No, I just put you back up to 720. We'll see if it
okay, we'll see guys. We'll see if this works. And if just speak up if you're having problems with connections. The video resolution probably isn't going to be super stellar, just to make sure that we can get the signal going. Anyway, okay, so now I'm all distracted.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm blaming Lisa. I don't know why, but I'm blaming. She's over there, and she's going to be nice to me today. So, okay, so basically Plato mentions Atlantis, and everybody goes, "Ooh, Plato's talking about this place," and now you've got. One group of people are going, okay, he's talking about a place that really existed. You've got another group of people saying he made this up. He invented the entire thing because the entire writing that it was a part of was trying to make a point about one type of, because he was talking about how the kingdom of Atlantis was run.
Pause for 1 second.
Uh-oh, she found something.
There, go for it.
Okay, she says go for it. I can't say anything yet. Oh my God,
You're right. You're fine.
I can't see myself here, but okay, here I am. Okay. Where was I? This entire chat tonight is going to consist of me starting over, and by the end of it, I'll have gotten 3 sentences out. Okay. So Plato first mentions, okay, for starters, or so we think, Plato first mentions Atlantis Some people think he's talking about a real place. Some people think he's made up this as an example of a type of society, because part of the story that he tells of Atlantis is how Atlantis started off wonderful. They were perfect. They were great. They had all this stuff. And then they degraded and went to war with Athens, and Athens beat them. And this is what everybody focuses on, that he made this up because at the end of the story, Athens defeats the Atlantean army to prove the might of Athens. And it doesn't make sense if they were, so this kind of goes in a big circle. But where the conspiracy comes in is that there was it's in my notes, so you might be able to check the notes that I left.
Oh yeah, sorry.
The Mahabharata, which is like 2,000 years before Plato, mentions a lost kingdom, and I think they called it Atun in the Mahabharata, that sank under the waves. The Bible mentions other lost cities that sank under the waves. Yes, dear?
You have to tell me exactly what information you need when I'm looking.
Mahabharata. It should be about halfway down that document. But anyway, so basically we've got this giant pissing contest over whether or not Atlantis could have existed, with the scientific community saying no, and then we've got the theorists, then we've got the conspiracies and the theories, because we've got so many underwater sunken cities that it's like, this is not adding up. Hi.
What do you need?
Mahabharata.
What about it?
The name of the oh, it's not in that document.
It's in there. I just need to know what information you're looking for.
What in the Mahabharata they refer to a sunken kingdom by name, and they called it something that sounded very, very close to Atlantis. It was like
Herodotus, Hellanicus, and Apollodorus.
No, yeah, it's in there.
Apollodorus.
And no, if I look, you know what? I'll probably find it in one of these books.
Sorry.
Anyway, so Atlantis gets very, very interesting, and then we've got the Egyptians in their histories have the account of a great battle with a sea people that came from the I guess for them it would be their west. I did not prepare as well as I would like to, so sorry guys. So
there's a comment I highlighted.
A comment you highlighted. I've heard that 9,000 years might have referred to lunar cycles versus sun cycles, with lunar cycles would have been around 1,300 years ago in one documentary. The interesting thing, Whale Song, is that if you look at the geological records, and this is something I'll touch on a little bit later because there's a few new theories that have come out. 9,000 years ago, if this is a real place, then based on Plato's description, it could only have been about 9,000 years ago. And this is why the scientific community doesn't want to believe it, because they don't believe anything that advanced could have existed that long ago. And it gets really, really interesting. Jen, the middle-aged baby witch says, did Athens even exist 9,000 ago? No. Plato very specifically in his thing said, the first report of Atlantis was Plato says that he is quoting Solon, who apparently was about 300 years before his time. And Solon, which other writings mention it, and this is where it gets really weird, because there's all kinds of other writings that mention Atlantis, and there's all kinds of other writings that existed before Plato's time that mention Atlantis, but they're fragments, so they don't mention enough. They say blah 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 Atlantis, but they don't say where it is. They don't give any details. So this is another one of the conspiracy type things that I keep saying conspiracy, and there's probably a better word. Maybe we should vote on a word that means this is a reason why. There's a reason why people believe that Atlantis could be real, in spite of the scientific community saying that there's no way. One of the things is that Plato is said to have provided the first reference to Atlantis, but he didn't. Other writers referenced Atlantis, but what they wrote was in fragments. So the fragments don't provide, because the archaeological digs have only found fragments, there's not enough information to show, were they talking about a person that just happened to have a similar name? What's the deal? Because Atlantis was supposed to be Atlanti, or something. It was Atlas's daughter. Was supposed to be one of Atlas's children or daughters or something like that. So we've got all these other reasons why Atlantis could be meant. There's not too many other reasons. Most of the references to Atlantis came after Plato's time. The references that came before Plato's time, and there's like 7 or 8 of them mentioned that I was able to look up, but they mentioned that the word is found in these document fragments, but no explanation for what that word's all about. It's like finding an old book, but there's only 3 pages with 6 words left. It's so everybody just says, oh, that's just a coincidence, and they ignore it. But Plato stated, yes, dear. Oh, look at the poop. What are you doing?
No poop.
You're pointing at stuff.
I'm just letting you know I highlighted a comment.
Yes, Atlantis and Lemuria. This is another thing. I'm sorry. Amethyst Ascension says, wasn't Atlantis supposed to be at its peak at the same time as Lemuria? I thought I had read or heard that somewhere also. Basically, this is something that makes scientists cringe and people like us go woo, because there was Lemuria, there was Atlantis, there was like 9 or 10 different areas of the world that were claimed to have sunken islands. The Bible talks about sunken kingdoms. If you find that name, that'd be great if you could put that up. Remember that city near Donana, the one that they're arguing about, that one?
Which city near Donana? The Bible one?
Yeah. Tyrene?
No, Tanasis? It's in the book. It's in the big book. Keep the big book.
I don't want to read the big book for now.
Give me the big book. I'll flip for it.
She's gonna flip for it. Anyway, there are literally dozens, and here, okay, so there's literally dozens of lost kingdoms mentioned in various ancient writings from various groups, races, cultures, religions. And don't forget, these are all kind of separate. The natives, even the Native Americans, talk about different peoples that were blah blah and then swept away by the sea because tsunamis and things like that. Yeah, nobody seems to know where the fuck it is. According to the following link on Wikipedia, there are over 26 possible locations suggested, and that is the problem. I have a theory. I'll get into that in a little bit. Don't let me forget that I have a theory. So anyway, we've got all these lost cities, all these lost kingdoms. Some of them are claimed in Egyptian writings, in Phoenician writings, what little bit they have of that, in the Bible, in the Mahabharata. There is a Japanese legend of a sunken city. There's a Cambodian legend of a sunken city. The land of Punt, I think it is another one that was supposed to have gone. So we've got all these cities. Now, the interesting thing is that one thing Tartessos is a famous city mentioned in the Bible that according to religious scholars, Tartessos could, some religious scholars are now saying that Tartessos could be the Hebrew name for Atlantis, which is something that which is something I ended up looking up. So yeah, there was one documentary that addressed the map making skills of Atlas and the civilizations at the time, which was really, that was really interesting. Hey, if you want to put up that one map, what are we looking at?
Whale Song anyone saying Atlantis did exist because of their seagoing navigation.
Yes, they were reported to be excellent mariners. One of the things that Plato said, and this is what really caught my attention when I was rereading it from I think it was the account that he has in the Timaeus, was that he was saying, he described, when you read the whole thing, he's saying, out beyond the Pillars of Hercules there was Atlas met the story goes, Atlas met and fell in love with a mortal woman. He built up Atlantis as a place to keep her safe and blah blah blah. And I can go blah 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 because it's a very stereotypical gods and mortals type of story. Yes, dear.
I need to know what map you need, and there's a new comment from Whale Song.
Oh, have you ever read Graham Hancock's book Underworld: The Mysterious Origins of Civilization? That one doesn't ring a bell, but I've read a ton of those kinds of books. So yeah, there's all kinds of interesting theories there's all kinds of interesting like conspiracy type stuff about where and how our civilization came from, because we were like happy little nomad wandering hunter gatherers for like 40,000 years. And then we just went, hey, wait a second, let's get civilized. And went like that. And there's so many of these stories report that the gods helped man become civilized. I think that's part of the reason why our modern science just is committed to not believing it. Yeah, it makes me think that most of these sunken cities were from a time before our polar cap shifted. Honestly, they could be from a time just shortly before our last ice age ended. because when the Ice Age ended, all those glaciers melted and raised our sea levels by like 600 meters. And if you're a relatively primitive society by today's standards, because just leave it at that and not get too deeply into that right now, you're going to want to live near a coastline just for water, for fish, for whatever.
Which map would you like?
I would like the
first one in the series of 3.
No, I would like the other one that shows what the known world in Plato's time. This is an interesting map. This was Herodotus. This was the Herodotus map that was written, that Herodotus created not too long after Plato, or near the same, within the same like 100-year span.
Do you have the right one up?
Yeah, that's it. So this shows this shows the known world in their time. So we have Europe to the north. We have Libya. Libya was basically, they didn't really have an Egypt, if that makes sense, in their reckonings. Libya was just North Africa. It wasn't a country of itself yet. On the bottom towards the left where it says Atlas, that's the Atlas Mountains. And this was their knowledge of the world in Plato's time. But the really, really interesting thing is that Plato's description says that when you leave the Mediterranean going past the Pillars of Hercules, which is the Strait of Gibraltar, where the Mediterranean dumps into the Atlantic, there's an island. And that if you follow, there is a series of islands, and if you follow the islands, you can pass them and reach the other continent. And it ends up sounding like he's describing North America. And there's a lot of theories that say that that's exactly what he was describing. But what he talks about, so let me get back to that. And I had it written, I had it copied somewhere, and I literally cannot find it. So basically what Plato describes is that out past the Pillars of Hercules, there's islands. These were created by Atlas, who raised up Atlantis, installed his wife there, had 10 kids, actually had 5 pairs of twins. Each set of twins, he gave a different kingdom. He gave a different.
What the Pillars of Hercules are yet?
No, I haven't really gotten there yet. Okay. Lisa wants me to get to the Pillars of Hercules.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So this is where we are with Plato's description, and Plato talks about this being a chain of islands. Okay, the science that says at one point we were all one landmass that separated over time, that was the Pangea theory. And so yeah, we were all one landmass and everything kind of broke up and spread out. So we don't know what was in between these landmasses as things were breaking up and spreading out. We really don't. There's evidence now that New Zealand was a continent of its own above the water. There's evidence that Indonesia was entirely above water during the last ice age and formed an extension to the continent of Asia. So we have all this stuff that is just now turning into a muddled mess now that they're adding so many things to it. What are we looking at, hon? Because you pointed.
Oh, sorry, I highlighted a comment, but there's a slight delay.
Oh, I don't see it. Yeah, isn't there science that says at one point that all of our continents, there were one land mass that separated over time? Yeah, and that again, that was Pangea. My thoughts on Pangea is that according to scientists, there was one land mass on one side of the world and everything else was water, and that doesn't make sense. It's like what was on the other side away from the Pangea landmass? Was there an opposite landmass that subsided to give room to these others to move around? But you know, that's a whole separate thing. Okay, so where am I? I'm confusing myself, guys. I hope this is making sense. If anything is not making sense, stop me. I'm new to this. This is only my third video?
Yeah.
This is only my third video. I'm still getting the hang of how to give you guys the information that you need without getting all babbly and confusing. So if anybody wants to ask a question or wants a clarification, absolutely speak up.
What did you want to point out about this map?
Okay, so about this map, this was the known world in Plato's time, but Plato makes it very, very clear that what he's talking about is a place that no longer exists and is no longer part of the known world. But several things that he says in his thing is several of the things that he has to say, and I really wish I hadn't lost the document. I'm trying to do it from memory, and I didn't have time to look it up because I'm stupid and didn't make good use of my time today. Oh, I know. I didn't make good use of my time today, and I couldn't find.
You were taking care of me. That's an
I was taking care of. Oh my God, poor Lisa. She's fine, But
Really whiny.
you ever do the thing where you're not sick, but you're fighting off something, so you might as well be sick? It's like
sick?
you are.
Sick.
Well, you don't have a fever.
I'll pick a fight with you right now.
Okay, apparently she's incredibly ill and about to die.
That's better.
Oh my God! Somebody help me! Blink, 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 blink. Isn't that the code? One if I'm fine, two if I need help, 300 if they need to call 911.
So what's this Atlas chunk on the map?
Okay.
In Libya or whatever.
So this goes along with other theories. And again, for starters, there are about 50 different possible locations that people say could have been Atlantis. The Isle of Sardinia, which partially exploded due to a volcano. Oh, that was Atlantis. That's what they're talking about. Okay, various islands. There is Crete.
The Minoans.
The island of
that for a minute. People love that.
What?
About Crete and the Minoans.
Oh, basically, worshiping bulls was reported to be part of the Atlantean religion, and Crete, the Minoans, engaged. The labyrinth. They engaged in bull worship, and there's people that say that Crete was the site of Atlantis, and that when a volcano caused a tsunami, that's what flooded it, and that's where it was. There are basically what happened is during the last ice age, the water levels, because everything's locked up in ice, so the sea and water levels dropped. So during that time, and the glaciers were on the land for something like 10,000 years. So different cities and different whatever developed because port cities and trading towns and stuff like that needing to be near the water. And then the glaciers melt, the Mediterranean rises and floods out a lot of these cities. So there are a lot of underwater cities throughout the coast of the Mediterranean. Yeah, I would think the Earth was all water at one time and the land was created from volcanoes. So if that is the case, one landmass does sound right to me. I think multiple land masses, and then when Pangea split up, it just pushed the other ones under. Because plate tectonics is when two plates meet, they either go like this, or one goes under. So if you have more plates, and then things are moving, and if Pangea is going like this, something at the backside is being pushed under, and we don't know what was there. It's just gone now, right? It literally does not exist anymore. But that's my personal opinion. I'm not going to disparage anybody else's opinions. Oh, hey, Barb. Okay. So now just to go in a complete fucking babbling circle, there are so many different locations where underwater ruins have been found that everybody with a theory, there's somebody advocating for each and every one of these locations to be the original location of Atlantis. There's also people advocating for those very same regions to be again, all those other cities, Mu and Lemuria and all those other ones to also be those cities. There's also, and I'm a believer that we basically have a few civilizations, but a whole bunch of languages referring to the same place, the same civilization by different names, because we have that now in our general mapping. If you look at a generic world map right now and you look it up in English, French, German, Spanish, you're going to find different names. Everybody under their own. And back then, every tribe had its own language. Every region had its own language. There was as many languages as there were tribes back then because everybody was so isolated.
I'm hijacking your thing for a second.
Oh, you can hijack.
Check this out. Oh, wait.
Check what?
I need this. Hold on. Underwater ruins found off the coast of Spain.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Post links in the comments later to the other written references to Atlantis, please. I keep meaning to go back and do that because I had that from the other one, too. Underwater ruins off the coast of Spain. Atlantis, again, that is part of the Donana current one. There's a current theory. Okay. Does anybody not know where Gibraltar is? The Rock of Gibraltar, the Strait of Gibraltar?
I'm going to put up the map again.
Is everybody familiar with that? Because that is where the Mediterranean goes and narrows before it opens, before it connects to the Atlantic. So it's a very small area.
I'll pull up a map. Give me 2 seconds. Here's a modern map.
Oh, she's going to do it. Apparently, I cannot. I'm like literally just talking with my hands. It's like,
yeah, you're a hand
wee.
talker. We both
I wish I knew sign language because this would be an amazing chat. Okay, so
Okay, here's an actual modern map.
an actual modern map. Lisa found us an actual modern map that she's going to link.
And
Barb says, my theory is that's where mermaids used to live. Okay, so if you look at Morocco and Spain off to the far left, Morocco and Spain off to the far left, where they are almost touching is the Strait of Gibraltar. And so if you want to leave, if you're a seafaring people and you want to get out to the Atlantic, that's where you have to go to get through. So major trade route for shipping going from Southern Europe and Northern Africa out through to the rest of the world. So basically, Plato says that Atlantis is out past the Pillars of Hercules. The Rock of Gibraltar, which is a rock structure on one side of the strait, is considered to be one of the Pillars of Hercules. There's a big controversy about where the other one might be because there's no actual corresponding rock formation on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a huge debate about that. And that right off of that is where Atlantis is. Yes. What are we doing? Yeah, Spain. Southern Spain, northern Morocco, right there. Now, there's a couple of different theories, and this gets really interesting. Yes, I've also read theories that date underwater structures are dated by how far underwater they are. Near Cuba, they are some 2,000 feet below sea level. Yes, you've got. Well, there's also like the ocean floor fluctuating as part of plate tectonics, and then just simply where could it have been, especially between ice ages and stuff like that, with which they're confident in their dating. Yes, honey.
I just realized, did you share the original description from Plato about Atlantis?
I'm trying to, but I'm doing it badly.
Let me see if I can find a.
Well, if you can find it in one of these, I can just. Okay, so basically the highlight. Okay, the highlights are out past the Pillars of Hercules, which modern science believes to be the Straits of Gibraltar, the land on either side, an island kingdom, but Plato describes it as a kingdom made up of several islands. He doesn't say that Atlantis is a single city. He basically states definitively in his writings that the Atlanteans ruled from Atlantis out in the Atlantic all the way around the islands that would exist, because he described Atlantis as having one large island surrounded by a ton of other islands that could let you go from the Pillars of Hercules through the islands and to the other continent.
Just show that maybe.
And this is what he described it as looking like.
Make sure it's showing a little higher. There we go. Perfect.
I'm
Yeah, that looks good, babe.
Yeah, so this is what he says it looked like. So the key points of Plato's discussion that have always generated the debate is people that talk about it in modern terms say, oh, the kingdom of Atlantis, the island of Atlantis. Well, Plato made it very clear, like, okay, think of like Mexico City, Mexico. The kingdom and the capital could have the same name. And he made it pretty clear that they did. So Atlas creates this city, installs his wife. He has a bunch of kids. Each of his 10 children are given various kingdoms and lands to rule. And Plato states that they controlled. Hey, if you can go back to that original map showing Plato's idea of where the world was.
The known world?
Plato's map of the known world. Because he says that that Atlantis, okay, the eldest child was given kingship over Atlantis and the island and the land that Atlantis was on. And he's not, I don't think he used the word island, but said that it was south of the Atlas Mountains, which that's what you'll see saying Atlas on the bottom bottom left, and that Atlantis ruled all of Libya. I don't know if it's Barb says man-made islands. According to Plato, Atlantis was man-made, was brought up, was created. but he's not. But he makes no reference that the rest of the islands were created. As a matter of fact, he said that the land was surrounded. He references islands and that that's where Atlantis was put, but not that the islands themselves were created by anybody. So it's, and again, no, the canals in the city of, and the canals around the city, and the actual city itself, that was man-made. But there's no talk.
But the landmass.
But the landmass, there's no. He doesn't really reference that the landmass was man-made. But he said that okay, so Atlantis, the main city ruled by the eldest child, who also the other nine brothers have to answer to them, and forms so basically forms 10 kingdoms. He made it clear that these were 10, so a confederation of kingdoms, kind of like Greek city-states, which is what he was trying to discuss in this document that he wrote. So he was comparing the Atlantis city-state system to the Greek city-state system. And as we know, Athens was not all of Greece. Athens was just a small portion of a very much larger confederation of kingdoms. And states that the children of Atlas ruled from Libya through Assyria to as far as Asia and Europe. And they considered Europe to be everything north of Greece. So basically by Plato's definition, Atlantis originally ruled almost all of North Africa and Europe. So yeah, the picture in that book just shows the main island where the city is. So you've got the city, okay, like Rome. Okay, in Roman times you had Rome, but then you had Roman rule, and Roman rule involved dozens and dozens of various countries and kingdoms that all had various obligations and allegiances to Rome. All roads lead to Rome. They went everywhere. This is basically what he was describing Atlantis as being. So the city and the center of power ruling from Atlantis versus where Atlantis actually physically was are kind of, he's describing two things, because if you were to talk about Rome, nobody has to explain to you that Rome is Rome, Italy is Italy, and the Roman Empire is, and that they're all three different things. Nobody has to explain the details of that. And so this is how he described, and I know that Plato came before Rome, but this is how he described, well, actually, I guess around the same time, so nobody had to describe these things. So he left a lot of descriptives out because it was just simply considered common knowledge in his time, because that's how the world worked in his day. So, yes, sorry, Will Song, did Plato describe red and black rocks, bulls, and/or bull worship and elephants, or am I confused? Plato was very descriptive on what the main city looked like, how it was managed, what gods they worshipped, what they did and didn't do. He was for a made up story, he provided a whole lot of details, and he said that he got the story from Solon, who Solon reported that I got the story from Solon, who got the story from Egypt, because Solon was very well traveled. And Solon, apparently, according to Plato, brought the story back. Plato never claimed that he was making the story up. He claimed that he was repeating a story that was told to him by somebody that had heard this, that had got the story from the Egyptian priests 300 years prior.
I have Plato's description of Atlantis. I'm going to put it on the screen.
Oh, I did a thing. Just a second. There it is.
Do you hear me?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm putting it up on the screen right now.
Okay, she has a description?
Yeah, it's Plato's description of Atlantis.
Okay.
Oh, wait. I need this one.
So you're just going to, so it's basically a synopsis of all the crap I've been babbling about so far. Ooh, she found a synopsis.
You might be able to even read it.
Make it bigger.
I don't think I can make it.
Yeah, Plato, through the character critics in his dialogues, describes Atlantis as an island larger than Libya and Asia Minor put together. Located in the Atlantic, just beyond the Pillars of Hercules, generally assumed to mean the Strait of Gibraltar. And by the way, the Pillars of Hercules, it's pure conjecture as to where they are, because the descriptions of, the historical descriptions of what the Pillars of Hercules look like and the actual location that they think is they don't match. So nobody knows whether or not it was just a embellished description of a natural feature, or whether there was actually a monument that's being referred to that doesn't exist anymore. So nobody knows for sure exactly where the pillars, what they look like, or where they are. Okay, so its culture was advanced and it had a constitution suspiciously similar to the one outlined in Plato's Republic. It was protected by the god Poseidon. Oh yeah, Poseidon met and married a mortal woman, and his oldest son was Atlas, after whom Atlantis was named. That's where I got that screwed up. As the Atlanteans grew powerful, their ethics declined, which he describes. He describes them being he describes the original Atlanteans as being semi-divine, godlike, and very, very pure and what's holy, I guess is the best word. And then as they mingled more and more with humanity, with common humanity, they declined as a people and became aggressive and warlike. Also describes things like orichalcum. Orichalcum is a really, really interesting thing, because when you look it up, it's very well known in Plato's time, but it's well known as something that no longer exists. And it's considered to be a form of red copper, but there's no indication. They talk about it excessively, but there's no actual details on what it could be. Pure conjecture. As the Atlanteans grew powerful, their ethics declined. Their armies eventually conquered Africa as far as Egypt and Europe, as far as Tyrrhenia, which is Etruscan Italy, before being driven back by the Athenian-led alliance. Later, by way of divine punishment, the island was beset by earthquakes and floods and sank into muddy seas. But this is not what Plato said. He said that after the battle with Athens, after the Athenians lost, there was earthquakes and floods that wiped out the army. There seems to be, if you read, because it's all translations. Don't forget, this is all translations, and the person doing the translating can accidentally or otherwise put their own spin on things. Basically, it sounds like the breaking up of Atlantis, which is how he referred to it at one point, was an overtime process. The city of Atlantis sunk under the waves in a single day and night, but the rest of the islands sunk over time, and became smaller and smaller. This is what's been written and conjectured elsewhere. But there are Herodotus mentions Atlantis, Apollonius. There's a whole bunch of mentions of Atlantis from people that were from writers that were older, that more older writers than Plato. So the idea that Plato was the first to write about it is he's just the first whose writings we have a copy of. Yeah, Plato sounds like a smarty pants. Yeah, all your war in a single day and night of misfortune, all your warlike men in a body sank into the earth. Basically, the army was devastated. It's not talking about the actual land. So this gets really interesting. So where things take a turn, can we look at the Casey map? Okay. In the 1950s, Edgar Casey, this is a complete jump to the left, because Atlantis was already thanks to an 1800s researcher, Atlantis found its way back into favor. And so the sleeping prophet, Edgar Casey, which we should really, really, really think about doing a talk on him one day.
He's on the list.
He is on the list. Basically talked in detail. Yes, according to the people I have watched, the demise of Atlantis was because of a war, and they used a very powerful weapon and destroyed them. This weapon was said to be a crystal. That is exactly what Edgar Casey says. Now, Edgar Casey is a very, very fascinating person, because he basically gave future predictive readings. He did past life regressions. He talked about ancient kingdoms, ancient areas. He talked about Atlantis in depth in his readings, in his things. They called him the sleeping prophet. He would go into a trance. He would talk about things. Usually they would ask him questions. He would answer. And every now and again, he would come out with some very strange things. So they would have another reading later and ask him about it. And there are entire books about his readings on Atlantis, because one of the things that he said was that Atlantis did not break up overnight, that Atlantis was part of a much larger network of kingdoms and things worldwide. This map here shows a conjectured idea. Now there's a couple of little fun facts. This shows conjecture on what a kingdom of Atlantis would have looked like had it been a multitude of islands with a central continent located just outside of the Mediterranean, reaching all the way. Because one of the things that Plato said was that a sailor could, by following the islands, go from the Pillars of Hercules, past the islands, to the other continent. But the interesting thing is, and this is a little fun fact, the Mediterranean isn't necessarily known for being, the Mediterranean is thought of as a very dangerous sea to be on. Sudden storms, unpredictable weather, sea monsters existed in Plato's time, the belief in it. Greek sailors preferred to sail within sight of land. They did not like a lot of, they're rowing everywhere they go. They're not using sailed ships the way Europeans did. They're rowing. So this theory, one of the theories that popped up around this is that by Plato's description and based on the fact that that the ancient Greeks of especially before Plato's time did not like to sail out of sight of land, how can there be an Atlantis? Yeah, and you can see the tailor with the Bimini Road is. Amethyst Ascension knows where I'm going with this. No, you are like, oh my God.
Do you still need this map up, babe?
It's a
I
cool.
have another quote from Plato if you want.
Yes, if you'd like. Are you good? Yeah. Is everybody done with the map? Have you guys seen enough? Okay.
Check this out.
So basically, one of the things that Edgar Cayce did was he said, evidence of Atlantis will be found in or near Bimini in 68. Was it 68?
Oh, I can
Or
pull that up if you
58,
want.
68 or 69.
Hold on, I'm sharing something irrelevant here.
Okay,
Hold on.
let's just jump.
Let's go.
Are you guys okay with this squirrel show? Because I can actually be a grown up and try to be a little bit more.
Give me 2 seconds, babe.
You took it away.
Yeah, I know, because I have something better.
Amethyst Ascension. This is my kind of stuff, Peggy. You're speaking my language. Oh, if you want to see a map, okay, Dustin commented, I love all the ancient maps they've found that show a continent in the Atlantic along with coastline below the ice in Antarctica that the mainstream won't recognize. Look up the Piri-Reis map. It's insane. And Piri-Reis made it very clear that he copied this from a map. He copied this from ancient documents that he found somewhere. I think he said the Vatican. And the documents that were in the Vatican were taken from the Library of Alexandria.
Do you want the Piri-Reis map up?
Oh, you've got it?
Yeah.
She's got it. She's got the Piri-Reis map.
Of course I got it. That's my job. Hold on. 2 seconds.
Okay, she's gonna get the map. Ooh, get the map.
It's kind of grainy.
It's kind of, and it's, yeah. There's a lot of the photos of this map are old enough before HD technology. Admiral Piri-Reis was an admiral, I believe, in the Portuguese Navy. Anyway, so I'm going to babble about Edgar Cayce for a minute. So basically, he said that evidence of Atlantis would be found in or near Bimini and I can't remember whether we said
the Piri-Reis map. I'm sorry. Can we go back to that for a split second so people know what they're looking at?
Yes, this is the Piri-Reis map. And it doesn't look like much if you're not super into map making, but what it's showing is the south coast. It's showing Africa. It's not looking very good to me either, unfortunately. It shows the coastline of Antarctica, but what it shows is the coastline of what Antarctica looks like without ice, which is just impossible. There is absolutely no way that anybody in the 1500s could have known what the coast of Antarctica looks like without ice, because even in the summertime, and there are regions in the summertime that become ice-free, that's only a few small areas. A few small areas in very specific climate, like prevailing trade winds and stuff like that. There's only a very few smaller areas of the Antarctic that become ice-free up to the coastline. There are the vast majority. If you look at even Google Maps will show you. You can see the landmass, and then 100, 1,000 miles of ice going out. There's no way that anybody in Piri-Reis's time could know what Antarctica looked like without ice, which is a whole separate conspiracy of its own, that we had high civilization between ice ages, because at some points the Antarctic was ice free. Anyway,
back to Edgar Casey.
Back to Edgar Casey. Is everybody keeping up? Got questions? Ask questions, please. My God, stop me. So Edgar Casey does a reading, starts talking about Atlantis. They catch on that something's going on. They ask him more. Eventually they put together the documentation. One of the things that he says is, I can't remember whether we said 58 in 58 or 59, or if he said in 68 or 69. I cannot remember. So I'm off by, I might be off by a decade. Evidence of Atlantis will be found in or near Bimini when Atlantis will rise from the waves. And it was all very whatever. And then in 58 or 68, that's when the Bimini Wall was discovered. The Bimini Wall was discovered. The Bimini Wall is a fascinating structure, because there is not one person in the scientific world who will admit that it's an actual wall. Oh, it's a natural structure. Meanwhile, when you get to satellite photography, aerial photography, you can even see it on Google fucking Maps, that this structure is not just one section of wall.
Do you want a picture of the Bimini Wall?
Oh yes, yes, please. One of the interesting Jen the middle-aged baby witch says, I absolutely believe in high-tech civilizations between ice ages. I absolutely believe it, because another fun fact, the more technologically advanced structures built by Egypt were built at the beginning of their kingdom, not the end. By the end of the Egyptian kingdom, they were carving out caves because they had lost. It was just like the archaeology of Egypt is a definitive timeline of the decline of Egyptian technology. And this makes no sense, because our modern technology is obviously clearly an upward progression. So, but if you turn off the power, I'm not kidding, turn off the power and let our modern global civilization decline, and we'll be back to sticks and stones in like two generations. Because I don't know how to smelt iron. I don't think anybody here does. If I did know how to smelt iron, I have no idea how to get it. And if I did, I'd have no idea how to get it if I got there. So you take a technological civilization like we have technology. Well, you turn off the power, we're not going to access our technology because the computers are all off. Anyway, I went on a tangent.
Okay, there's the Bimini.
Okay, this is part of the Bimini Wall. And according to archaeologists, these are natural structures that occurred spontaneously in an area that's not known for this type of formation otherwise.
I'm going to pull up another photo in a second, so keep talking.
Lisa's going to pull up other photos. So basically, Edgar Casey's statements while in his psychic trance, and I think he actually has a name for it, but I can't remember it offhand, is that these are evidence and proof of structures off of Bimini. One of the interesting things he said was that there was going to be a pyramid found underwater, and there are people that are reported finding a pyramid, and amazingly enough, then those areas then get marked out of bounds and all kinds of weird shit happens. But he basically said, now that structure I believe is in Japan.
This said it was part of Bimini.
Did it?
Yeah.
I think that's a mistake, because that looks like part of a structure that's on just off of the southern island of Japan.
Oh, well, here, I got a better one then.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, just that right there. Look at that. Look at all these pictures of artificial phenomenon that, oh, pardon me. Thing is, I'm going to take a sip, because the last time I didn't take a sip, I had a massive coughing fit, and then, yeah.
We don't want that again.
No. Well, some people did, because, people are mean. Guys.
Here's a really good one. Hold on.
When you look at aerial photography of the Bimini area and then see where these lines do and don't go, they look exactly like a roadway system. And these roadways go off into the deeper ocean. And they've proven.
Here's another one.
They've proven that they have proven about 9,000 years ago, there's that 9,000 years ago that Plato mentioned, that area was above water between ice ages. during the last ice age, this entire region was above water. And this is without any theories on tectonic activity. The area was above water. They know it was above water. They've proven it was above water. And yet all the structures, all the evidence of walls, structures, like some of these walls go in large square formations. It's like they're too regular, they're too straight, they're too all kinds of things. And they know that the area is above ground, but they're saying it was just, these are just natural formations. They couldn't, because in order for these to be man-made formations, they have to be about 10 to 12,000 years old. And modern science refuses to admit that there's even the possibility that we could have had high civilization 12,000 years ago, because if we had a high civilization 12 years ago, new civilization starts 4,000 years ago, we've had 8,000 years of something in between that they can't explain. And they've got no proof of it. What you doing, hon?
I got a better picture up.
Oh, she got a picture. Yeah. See, now look at these. If these are okay, for starters, if these are man-made from 12,000 years ago, when not 9 to 12. So I'm going to say 9 or 12 interchangeably. I'm going to be bad for that. Toadstool Tarot says, looks pretty bumpy. Didn't they know how to pave a road? Well, okay. Turn off the power and walk away from any major city and come back like 1,000 years later. There won't even be a road here, because plants and root systems, like, that's entirely encrusted in coral and various water plants, and it's been picked at over 10,000 years. And this is exactly what long-term erosion looks like on stone. So, and like I said, here it wouldn't even exist anymore, because asphalt wouldn't last the way a granite block does. So, according to Edgar Cayce, this is the western end. This is the western extent of the continent of Atlantis, which was essentially made up of interconnected islands. And
what about this one though? Hold on, let me put this one up. Look at this one.
Yeah, Amethyst Ascension says, nobody could ever convince me that those are natural. I'm sorry, if you could look up like aerial map.
I'm gonna try, but look at this one first. It should be up on your screen now.
Yeah, that's natural, folks. According to modern archaeologists, that is a natural formation. I wonder. I bet. How much do you want to bet that I have a picture right here, and if I were to just flip through the pages, I'd bloody well find it. So anyway, now we've got somebody who.
Oh shoot! I screwed up.
The unfortunate reality is that because of I think Edgar Cayce was legitimate. I really do. I think he's there is so much about him that people don't know about diagnosis that he's made, medicate. He designed in his sleep, in a trance, a device to help people with certain types of an eye problem, I think it was. Oh no, I forget what it was. I would literally have to look it up. It's been so long, guys. That is still in use today in some areas, because he designed this thing and it worked. Oh no. Okay. So anyway, so now we've got Edgar Cayce comes into the mix. The stuff he's saying is happening. Oh, this is what's going to happen. This is Atlantis. This is. But he never said it was the city of Atlantis. He said it was the kingdom of Atlantis, the continent of Atlantis. And this is where things get crazy, because
that's the closest to an aerial, by the way, that I can get.
You're putting something up?
Yeah.
I'm waiting for it. I'm lagging.
3 seconds. There it is.
Yes.
Now
you tell me that that's natural when there's no other stone in the area. This is what the aerial photography of these stone areas around Bimini looks like. It looks like roads and walls. There's one structure there that they found that they can't get anybody to talk about, that looks like it would have been a pier or a wharf, and it's pointed off towards the more open ocean. So Edgar Cayce comes along and he says, yeah, this is what's going on. Now, unfortunately, he's saying a lot of stuff that if people were to take him seriously and just look where he says to look, they'd be every time somebody has gone and looked where he said to go look, they found something. Modern science says it's a natural formation. It's just your imagination. It's not real. People who do believe that there wasn't Atlantis are also, it's a rock and a hard place situation because we're the modern scientist crowd says, well, you can't believe some guy who goes into a trance and mumbles crap, because there's obviously, you talk about a guy like that and there's people that go, oh, he's the real deal. Oh, he was a lunatic or a shyster, right? So you're going to get all these different things. So he's definitely added to the conversation, but unfortunately, the credibility issue that comes, the skepticism that comes from the scientific community means that his credibility based on psychic visions is now not, well, yeah, they question it, and so now they're going to double down on like that. Well, Atlantis can't possibly exist, because if Atlantis exists the way this guy says it exists, we may also have to accept that what he did was the real deal. So it becomes a rock and a hard place. Yeah, Lisa's got all sorts of things on this. So anyway, yeah, he added to the topic Edgar Casey is, Edgar Casey is, there are like over a dozen books just written about the stuff that he's had to say. His past life readings talk about things that exist in Egyptian society that we're only just discovering now. So yeah,
stone circle. That's crazy.
Yeah, but it's natural. It's not real. Okay, so the thing is, I think my personal opinion is that what Plato was describing and what has been described by other authors, there's other authors besides Plato, but they mentioned Atlantis, so everybody assumes anybody that came after Plato and mentioned Atlantis, and a few people were specifically referencing what Plato had to say about Atlantis. Other writers of Plato's time frame, in the BC time frame, that have mentioned Atlantis since then, everybody's just assuming that they have just simply read, oh, well, you just read Plato's work. And no matter what they have to say about it, they're just being accused of copying Plato's work. And these guys are saying, no, like, I mean, Plato was repeating a story that came directly out of Egypt that Solon brought. Solon, the reformer, I think it was. He was a very important person in Athenian history. There's other people that have mentioned Atlantis before and after Plato's time, but we don't give it any credit. The stuff that came before Plato wasn't descriptive enough to be sure that it was referencing the same thing. The stuff that came after, everybody is just assuming that they've just talked about Plato's references. So there's a problem right there.
You want to be able to look up something? Do you remember what it was?
References, we find underwater cities all the time. We find them constantly. The 2014 tsunami.
That's what you want me to look up?
No, after the 2014 tsunami, it was a nasty tsunami. The tidal waves that came in on India disturbed the sand, like washed away sandbars. And when they washed away the sandbars, they found cities under the coastline, like major archaeological discoveries, because of just wash away the sand, and there it is sitting there. So there's that. But yeah, the two newest theories. There's two new theories that people are actually taking seriously. One is, do you want to do Nona first? Do Nona?
Yeah, but first I've got an Edgar Casey channeling about Atlantis here.
Oh, okay. Edgar Casey channeling about Atlantis.
A portion of the temples may yet be discovered.
Can you guys?
They can hear us. They can hear me.
Okay.
A portion of the temples may yet be discovered under the slime of ages and seawater near Bimini. Expected in 68 or 69, not so far away.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And then in 68, right on schedule, is when the first section of the Bimini Wall was discovered. And now that they know what they're looking for, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles of these structures underwater. They're super easy to find. The water's not, the locals have known about it for generations. It's just, they just didn't, you don't think about it, right?
And yeah, talk about
the whale song. Oh, this is interesting, whale song. Like the Bible is real.
Sorry, but Plato's words Sorry, you got
sorry. Like the Bible is real, but Plato's words are not. Again, no disrespect, but no cherry picking. The Bible talks about lost cities that were that were flooded and buried in the mud. There are biblical scholars in the field of archaeology who are actively searching for cities mentioned in the Bible, while stating that Atlantis can't possibly be real because Plato came before the Bible, essentially is what they're saying. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing how well a lot of the artifacts have survived underwater for 2,000 years. The interesting thing about underwater artifacts is that depending on where they are, the salt as a preservative can actually protect them, and then you get like the corals and the other crusting on top of that, acting also as a protective layer. I mean, some of this stuff literally falls apart the minute it's out of the water, but yeah, it's really interesting. So yeah, alien civilizations and possible descriptions of alien visitations as well. This is another part of the problem, is that a lot of the same documents that talk about Lemuria and Mu and stuff like that talk about things that we just don't want to believe is possible, like flight.
Quickly look.
Ooh, quickly look.
It
was absolutely amazing how well. What did I miss?
Look at Jen the Middle-Aged Baby Witch comments. There's 2 in a row. St. Louis Art Museum.
Like the Bible is real, but Plato's words are not. Are again. It is absolutely amazing how well a lot of artifacts have survived underwater for 2,000 years.
St. Louis Art Museum had an exhibit last summer.
Oh, guys, I think I'm lagging way more than I think I am because I don't see it. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Now she said scroll up. St. Louis Art Museum had an exhibit last summer from underwater Egyptian cities. Thonis, Herculaneum, and Canopus. Herculaneum is one of the cities that people think might have actually been Atlantis when it was originally built. So if you look at the Mediterranean, and you can look this up. Erica, in the Mahabharata, they talk about flying shit. They talk about flying devices, and of course, that's considered to be an epic of mythology. In Lemuria, was set. Some of the stuff that talks about Lemuria and Mu says that they got back and forth by flying from island to island versus sailing. So there's. It does. I mean, it talks about taking up wings, moving through the air as a bird, and I mean they're never going to describe it as they got in their airplanes, but Vimyana is what they call it in India. That's what they call it in the Mahabharata. They call it Vimyana, and it was like I think they referred to it as like a room that lifts through the air and then goes where they want it to go.
That is so trippy.
Yeah, it's in the Mahabharata. They describe them in detail. And they state that they were powered by Mercury. The really interesting thing is that Mercury right now is being used as an experiment on levitation. So that's like, wait a minute, that's a little weird. So anyway, yeah, that Barb says hang gliding. Yeah, it's entirely possible. Like, I mean, it can be a really, really, really simple explanation, but when Native North Americans first saw Europeans riding horses, they literally thought, because don't forget, there were the Native North Americans had no knowledge of horses until they were brought from Europe. When they first saw Europeans on horses, they actually thought that they were some sort of an animal that was a horse with a horse head and a human head. They didn't originally, like, I mean, they were smart. They figured it out very quickly, but Mercury and levitation. Okay. In the Mahabharata, they describe what's called Vimyana, and the Vimyana are a flying machine that the various gods in the epic, maybe it was the epic of Gilgamesh. Anyway, the Vimyana are described as the flying machines that the gods flew around in, that they used to make war with each other, blah 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 blah. Now, in these documents, in these epic poems, they described what they looked like, how they were built, how many people they could carry, and they described that it was powered by a giant bowl of mercury, that there was a bowl of mercury, and this was where the power came from. I mean, I would absolutely love I mean, I don't know if I could find the reference, because obviously I'm not Indian, so I wouldn't be able to read the language or even know what to look up. But anyway, this is what was described in the Mahabharata as what these flying ships were, and how they look like bells, but they were said to be powered by liquid mercury. And yet, just a few weeks ago, I was looking at one of those science channel-y things, and they were talking about how they were using mercury-powered engines as basically, there's tons of research going into anti-gravity and levitation technology. And one of the things that they are doing is charging mercury, using charged mercury to create a levitation effect. They've proved that levitation exists. They've proven levitation. It's just that the amount of energy that we currently have to put into making an object levitate is just not worth the effect that it achieves. Like, like putting in like.
I just got a picture from the Mahabharata, I think.
Ooh.
From the Wikipedia article.
Yay. Oh, okay. Japan had them too. Yes, there's a Vimana. And in the Vimana.
Or Vimana?
Vimana or Vimana? I wouldn't.
Vimana.
Vimana?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, Vimana, not Vimana. I thought it was Vimyana.
Nope, just Vimana.
Vimana. They are said to have a bowl, a golden bowl or whatever bowl of mercury. And the funny thing is if you look up mercury-powered engine, you'll find some really interesting experiments that they've been doing for the last few years using mercury as a anti-gravity basic motor. So
I know we tangented, but you wanted to talk about Dolmana or whatever it's called?
Oh, Donana. Okay. So, so is everybody still with me? Oh God, this is like, we take the winding path around here, and that's fine. Okay, Pillars of Hercules. Pillars of Hercules, assuming that they are the Strait of Gibraltar. When you go out the pillars, do you have a map of that?
Yeah, I'm gonna bring.
Assuming
it doesn't show the Pillars of Hercules though.
No. Just you just basically want southern Spain showing Donana. Okay, Donana is a national park in Spain that is essentially mudflats. At one point in its history, that entire region was ocean front. It was water, and then something happened. Tsunami, a series of them, just flooded mud into the region, buried everything that's in there.
Okay, let me get this map up.
Oh, hi, Twist, Sir Twist. So basically, okay, now that is what is projected to be underneath this park in Spain, is what appears to be a structure that what they did was the biblical scholar comes in and says this could be the location of, what is that city again? This could be the Tarnassus. Tarnassus?
Yeah.
No, I think.
Which one are you trying to think of?
Okay. Basically, various researchers are like, this could be a possible location for a certain lost city that's named in the Bible, or Atlantis. So different people are coming into the same region for the same reason, just expecting to find a different result. They set up ground penetrating radar. Ooh, cool. They set up ground penetrating radar and mapped out the area. And this is what they found. So now they found these circular structures. This is like the artist's rendering of if these structures existed and there was no mud, what would it look like? And that's what it would look like.
And this is the
yes, that looks very, Barb says that looks similar to the picture of Atlantis you showed us. This looks that researchers are very, very excited about this because they're very excited about this because it could prove to be exactly what they've been looking for a very long time.
I'm going to get another image up.
And it's in the right area because, again, Plato did not specify that Atlantis was an island, just that the kingdom was a series of islands. And I've got some maps to show you that are going to blow your fucking minds.
First, I wanted to show where Donana is.
Oh, she's going to show where Donana is in relation.
Doñana.
I'm sorry. For any people, any Spaniards in the room, I'm very sorry. I'm very good at trying to say words, but yeah, my pronunciation must be just making all the Spanish people in the room cringe. She's looking it up.
I just want to get a better map so people can see where it is.
What are we looking at?
Nothing yet.
Oh, Dustin probably fell asleep. We all saw. He called me a bad mom for starting. Don't look up Donana National Park.
Yeah, I've got an image. It's just not. It doesn't.
You can look it up on Google Earth even.
Yeah, it just doesn't show it well in relation to the Strait of Gibraltar.
Oh, it should. Anyway, Strait of Gibraltar's here, and then just past. Oh, okay. See, it'd be more fun if you didn't answer, Dustin, and then we could just talk shit about you for a while because that's fun too. She's over there giggling. Nah, I wouldn't talk real shit though. That's no fun. Just the Dustin's a bad son kind. Okay. Now that I'm done teasing Dustin because that's what I do.
I'm just slow. But
Lisa found. Oh, Erica's awake too. Yeah, you knew it was your turn next, didn't you, Erica? Okay, so Donana is in terms of Plato's description within the scope of what could have been.
Here we go.
A realistic thing. Now, if you take, and there's speculation that any rock formations in that particular area would have to be man-made because of the geology of that particular area.
This shows it way better. Oops, I keep opening up the wrong one. There we go.
wait, Dustin. No. I don't want to tease you that much.
Okay, so this is the Strait of Gibraltar.
Yeah, this is the Strait of Gibraltar.
But if I zoom, that's a little too far. Okay, so here's Strait of Gibraltar down at the bottom.
Yeah.
I know I'm a little delayed from what I'm saying.
She's delayed, and I'm just bear with us, guys.
This green patch up here is the Donana National Park, where I think Atlantis was.
Okay, is there any way you can make the mouse move over it and see it?
I am, but it's.
So no, I can see it. Yeah, can you see the mouse? Just wee. So Donana. I'm pointing with my finger as if you guys can see it. I really need to do. So Donana is in that little covey type area. It's currently a national park. It's mudflats. And at one point it would have been water. It would have been entirely water. So it fits what could be the description for Atlantis. And if you remember that what I said earlier about the exact same thing can be called 400 different things in all of the hundreds of languages that would have existed at the time. Pardon me. So people are Donana Regional Park. Yeah, you look that up while I have a drink and belch a little bit.
Okay, now that I've shown that, I'm gonna.
Okay, so Donana is one of the prevailing theories. Donana is one of the prevailing theories on a possible location for Atlantis, which is really, really cool.
Now that they've seen that, this will make more sense.
Yes.
I'll bring up the other one again.
You put me up. I'm here. I make more sense now. Okay. This is one of the prevailing theories, and it's really, really interesting for a whole lot of reasons. And that's what they project. That's what the projection that it looks like based on the stones, based on the ground penetrating radar imaging that they found.
One of the documentaries we watched went into this in detail, and this is all mud flat, but like they're saying that it would have been underwater before because it's all marsh.
Yeah, it's all marsh. It would have been all marsh 10,000 years ago, and this is what it is now. But which one do you want to do next? Okay, so that's one of two. I don't know very much about this one, other than the obvious. They found evidence under the mud that there's a city. They haven't started excavating yet. So that's really about as far. I mean, obviously they're probably doing a whole lot of work on it, but this is as far as they've been able to release to the public in terms of what they found, because they have to do the next step, and that's get the shovels in there.
You've got the 3-part map. Is that what
you want to do that one first?
Or do you want to do the Eye of Africa?
Okay, so the next one, which is really, really freaking a lot of people out, is called the RICAT structure.
Do you want the one from space first?
Yeah. Let's do the furthest out one first. Okay. So this is...
Give it a second to come up. Remember, there's a delay.
So according to scientists, this is a naturally occurring phenomenon. And if you see that circle... If you're looking down, yeah, there it is. Yeah, honey, you had it. Like,
I know. There's a delay.
Oh, okay, there's a delay. So if you see that, okay, you see, okay, like the blue up in the top left is water. That circle area that Lisa's trying to get to focus is down towards the top left is water, bottom right, that round area. This is called the Rycat structure. Now, according to the archaeologists, what this is an old volcano that is just simply eroded away over time, and that this is like a little cross section of the dome, because a volcano, of course, you got your it erupts, a layer forms, it erupts, a new layer forms, it erupts, a new layer forms. So you just cut that off. This is what they're saying it is. And so this is called the Rycat structure. People call it the Eye of Africa. And again, it's a concentric ring structure. And there's been people that have gone out to the site. And one of the things that Plato said was that that Atlantis was built with layers of white and red and black stone. And the stone in the area, because there's locals that live right on top of the structure, like they build little shepherd huts and stuff like that, is red and black and white stone. So that's been a really interesting observation by people that have gone to the area.
Did somebody in the chat earlier ask about red and black and white stone?
Yes.
Or something? And who said, was that in Plato or in Casey?
Regarding Plato's description, Plato described Atlantis as being as the outer one ring, all the buildings were in white stone. One ring, all the buildings were in black stone. The next ring, all the and I don't know which order, so don't quote me on that part, of the different stones to denote what it was for or whatever. He didn't really go into why, but just to make it look nice and whatever.
Pull up the other photo of the...
So this is called the Rycat structure. This is in Mauritania. It's desert. It's a desert area now.
I'm pulling it up now so
people that are looking for a theory to believe in are convinced that this was basically
because there's the Strait of Gibraltar
hollowed out. They basically, because one of the things that Plato said was that they dug channels, not they built walls. They dug channels. So this picture shows North Africa at the very top. At the very top to the left-hand side, you can see the Strait of Gibraltar. The Mediterranean goes across the top. Strait of Gibraltar is where that green area and the two things are almost meeting out into the Atlantic. This is the Rycat structure. So it's still an area that may or may not be accessible through the if you wanted to get to the Rycat structure as a settlement, let's assume, obviously you guys know what the rings mean by now. So the idea being that this is the actual site of the actual city of Atlantis, the islands being the islands and the city being a separate thing. Let's assume that if this was Atlantis, you wouldn't necessarily want to get there by going over 1,000 miles of desert with no water. You'd sail around. So,
Barb just says, why would they have built the city in rings of color like that unless people could see it from the sky?
You know what? This is one of the reasons why modern archaeology does not want anything to do. They're happy to find underwater cities, but the idea of an advanced city like Atlantis scares the crap out of them, because there's absolutely no reason why somebody would put this effort into building a city. Period. But this gets interesting. So, didn't Nostradamus have a prophecy about Atlantis, or am I thinking of someone else? Must think. Jamie, Edgar Casey talked extensively about Atlantis. If you know who he is, he's referred to as a sleeping prophet, and he had a lot of predictions on the future. One of the predictions of Edgar Casey is that we would eventually find proof of Atlantis and proof of their technology, and start learning how to use that for ourselves. And he talked about how in Atlantis they had flying machines, that they could fly, that they had all sorts of technology that we know nothing, that we couldn't, that is beyond what we have now.
Check out what I found.
Oh, you found a better picture of the Rycat structure. This is so. Yeah, there's a ton. Yeah, Dustin says there's a lot of ancient ancient tech stories around Atlantis, and there are a ton. Edgar Casey basically said that one of the things that the Atlanteans did was learn how to harness the power of crystals. Nobody got sick in Atlantis because you would just go in and they would run a crystal over you, would heal you of anything. Crystals to power devices that could accomplish almost anything. Basically, crystals were such an integral part of what they did and how they did it that people didn't really have to work. It was just that simple. It was that easy. and this is kind of Edgar Casey's thing, and he said that as the Atlanteans became more warlike and greedy for land, they started using crystals as weapons, and that these crystals are what caused fissuring of the islands around their cities and caused a lot of the earthquakes that sank the city over a period of time. Plato does not talk about the entire kingdom disappearing in one solid go. He says the armies disappeared, and that later that the city sank. He doesn't state that they happened at the same time. Edgar Casey makes it clear that it was over time. Plato hints, implies, it depends on what you want to see when you're reading it, to be honest. I mean, there's that. Anyway.
Check this out. This is cool because of what you were just talking about. It's just an artist rendering.
Oh, crop circles. Crop circles is an interesting topic by itself.
We'll do a video on that.
What that pic is, Whale Song? Yeah, this is more of an Edgar Casey style rendering with crystals generating power, being used as weapons, that sort of thing. What that Rycat structure is Whale Song, is basically the top of a dormant volcano that's been sheared off and all the stone carted away, but the geologists are saying that it was a natural structure. Yeah, crop circles will be a future topic. And that, so what a lot of theorists are saying is that this area was flattened out, used the natural structure of what used to be the volcano. Some people are saying it was built, and some people are saying it was actually there, and they just leveled the top of a ancient volcano and then dug channels. So it's all theory because it's completely desert now. It's all desert. There's nothing that grows there anymore. So there's that. Hey, how's this going? Ooh, my battery's at 40%.
Atlantis as imagined by Athanasius Kircher in 1664. Have you seen this?
No. Well, maybe. Show me.
Screen. Hold on. This is pretty cool because it shows.
Oh, Lisa's gonna show us something.
I don't know how.
And Dolly Parton's boobs are natural. Yeah, so the basically what the archaeologists are saying is that prevailing trade winds go through that area and just scour it, and they flatten it completely. And yet we've got older structures, the buttes of Montana that are just straight up and down. Those are volcanic. Those are the same structures, and they open elements, prevailing winds for generations.
Check out this.
What do you got?
Sorry, it'll be a second.
Okay, so the Rycat structure, to me, the Rycat structure is very, very interesting, and there's a couple of really. Ah, yes, I've seen that. This is upside down. You've got Africa. You got Africa and Europe on the one side, with Africa on the top, Europe on the bottom, Atlantis in between, and then America on the other side. There are so many people who claim to have found.
Would that put it in the Pacific Ocean?
No. Just take the map and flip it upside down.
But it doesn't say it's upside down.
It is. Look, you have Africa. Okay, if you look at a regular map, Africa is on the bottom right.
Yeah.
Now it's on the top left. Just flip it upside down.
Oh, okay.
Just flip your screens, folks. It'll be fine. So.
But this shows a big center island with a couple.
Center island with a couple of center islands. And the funny thing is that if you look up, even on Google Maps, you look up the Azores, and you can see the original structure. And they have found underwater ruins all through that area.
Let me look up the Azores.
They have actually, there are scientists that are actually advocating hardcore now for, because the Atlantic is going like this. Wait, is it going like that? Yeah, it's going like that. There's people that are advocating hardcore that there was definitely something significant in the a significant landmass in the Atlantic that just sunk. They don't know why.
What kind of view of the Azores do you need? Overhead?
Yeah, just the Google Earth type terrain view.
Tell me if this will work.
Oops, she's gonna do a thing.
It always takes a few seconds.
Yeah, the arrow points down for north. Okay, so yeah, I don't know why that one was upside down. I've actually seen that map before. I just didn't. I'm really bad with going. Oh yeah, I know what that is, but I don't remember. I can quote you off an endless series of facts, but I can't tell you the dates. I don't remember things like that. It's kind of weird. Anyway, so the Rycat structure is really, really interesting because, and I'm gonna let the because hang for a few minutes because there's
Azores, by the way. I'm sorry to interrupt.
There's some stuff. There's a few maps that I want to show you in a bit because we're gonna have to think about winding up soon anyway.
Oh, there's still so much to say though. Is that the Azores?
I'm not sure. You'll have to, basically, I just need the Google Earth style topographical one that shows the underwater.
Okay.
So under the Azores are all okay. All of the little islands throughout the Mediterranean, throughout the Atlantic, from here all the way across to the other side, are the tips of underwater mountains. And the reality is that they've proven that during the last ice age, so much water was locked up. Okay, they've said so much water was locked up in the ice sheets that the ocean levels were up to 600 meters lower than they are now. So you take a 500-meter mountain and lower the water, you're going to get a landmass, and people could very easily have been living on it. So there's that. Are you finding it?
Yeah, I think so.
If you're not finding it, that's fine.
Okay, this might not be it, but I'm gonna put it up because I think it's what you're talking about. It's just easier if you. Okay, anyway.
Put it up. We're fine. We like seeing pretty pictures. It was fine.
I like putting up pretty pictures. I just like it when they're good. Okay, let's see.
Oh, that's cool. Claire was doing a paid reading. The second one who came to her privately for a reading. That is cool. I love it. I love it when Lisa says she got a reading like that. It's fun.
I didn't put it up. I'm sorry. Hold on. There we go.
Lisa didn't put it up.
There. Now it's up. I don't know if this is right.
Let's see. Yes. Okay, guys. See? Okay, so there's the Straits of Gibraltar. This is exactly it. If you look, the little teeny tiny light colored dots are the islands. So basically, if you look, you can see an island chain right there. It's on the map. It's really obvious. You don't have to be a geologist to see that if the sea levels were lower, that this would be mostly like this would be a very, very substantial chain of islands. And some of those islands are right where
Atlantis would be.
Well, it's right where Plato said Atlantis was.
Like right past the Strait of Gibraltar. You see, it's like
go straight out.
Right,
go straight out. It's right there.
Sorry, I moved it.
And just don't forget that. I mean,
look at all of this. Like it's right there.
In Plato's time, a city like Athens. Okay, Athens now would completely astound somebody like Plato, because if you see a map of Athens, you look at the touristy area. That was Athens back then. A city in Plato's time might have had 10,000 people in it. We're not talking massive megalopolises like New York City and Paris and London. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about things that are the world was not that big. So yeah, so the dots, the lighter colored dots are the islands. The darker blue without the dots, that's underwater mountains. And if you lower the water by about 600 meters, all of that is suddenly above water.
Yeah.
Which is really, really cool. But there's also.
Yeah, let me know what you need next.
Okay, so I just want to save my pet theory for last, because I'm kind of leaning that the Rycat structure. Any civilization makes use of natural formations because it's just simpler. I mean, okay, the pyramids of Giza, they were built on an existing plateau, so that all they had to do was just push away the sand and build the pyramids. It makes sense. Nobody goes out to make their buildings or whatever difficult. If you can just dig out some canals and build a city on top of an existing structure like this, you're going to have a much more efficient city. Claire's very much in that rush of, oh my gosh, I just did a paid rating. Everybody say congratulations. That's awesome, Claire. Okay. So this is the Rycat structure. It's called the Eye of Africa. I'm not sure if it's Rycat or Rishat, or maybe Rishat. It depends on what language it was even intentionally. Anyway, this is called the Eye of Africa. What it is concentric rings. There are like depressions between the rings. And I'm not sure. The center one is the higher one.
The center one the highest?
I believe so, because people. You know what? If you look at certain shapes on a map, they kind of look opposite. So it's hard to say. This is all sand dunes and stuff like that. It looks like probably a filter has been applied to imply that there's some water. There's no water that I know of around it. people have driven out there because you can just get to it by, there's a road that goes near there. Anyway, and if you look, you can see what appears to be an opening at one end where if there was water, it would be getting in and out. So I have a pet theory that this could be an excellent candidate. Yeah, this is what we have done. Build a city where there's a natural harbor or river for shipping. And this is exactly what I think probably happened.
What about those other 3 maps? Is that later?
Yeah, we're going to do that now. Okay. So Plato said that, and least to most. Okay. Plato said that this happened 9,000 years ago, and Plato was almost 2,000 years ago in our time, so 11,000 years ago. The interesting thing, if you can just bring that up, is Plato would have had no way to know what things would have looked like 9,000 years before his time. But this is the conservative opinion on what Africa would have looked like 9,000 years ago, because there was an ice age, just getting over the ice age. I forget where things were geologically, but every X number of years, what they have discovered is that the way the Earth's orbit works, they have discovered that I think it's, how many thousands of years? I looked it up. My God, I looked it up and I can't remember. Every like 20,000 years or so, the Earth tips from this way to this way. Now, the orbit of the Earth is not circular. It's like this. So the sun's here and we go like that. It's actually only like a couple of degrees different. This is why summers are so, the way the Earth tilts, this is why the summers are so intensely hot in Australia, and summers in North America can get hot, but not as hot, not generally as hot. And in about another 14,000 years, that's going to change, so that when North America gets here, we're going to be closer. Now, it seems every 26,000 years. Now, it seems counterintuitive, but what they've discovered, and they've got the fossil proof of it. They've got the fossil proof that shows that Africa was at one time completely green. They've got cave paintings showing elephants. Yeah, it's called an ellipse. I'm horrible for remembering that stuff, Dustin. They've shown and demonstrated, both in terms of cave paintings and archaeological evidence, that the Sahara was green, because when the Earth goes retrograde again, when the Earth's axis tilts again, the trade winds will shift. So instead of putting Africa in what's called a rain shadow, where the winds go up against the mountains, it just doesn't bring any water into the area. It's going to bring the winds from over water, bring area, and cause lakes to develop. Those lakes are going to fill up. The lakes are going to add to the moisture effect, and it's going to be wet. This is the conservative opinion of what Africa looked like 10,000 years ago. And if you see down on the left-hand side, there's a small lake there. Now let's go. This is the conservative opinion of what water would have looked like. Rivers where currently there is nothing. But can you go to the middle one?
Yeah, I'll switch it out right now.
A more aggressive look at this, a more aggressive opinion.
It's up for them.
I just want you guys to see this. It's up to you guys now.
It will be up by the time you're talking about it. Don't forget.
I just want you guys.
They're seeing what you're seeing. So
I just want you guys to see this, because a more aggressive opinion has even more water. Now, if you look, and I don't know if this is going to make sense to you guys, but if you look starting about where Egypt would be, you've got a lake that leads to 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 a lake.
So you're talking about,
those are all
this section up here.
Yeah, I'm talking about the northern section.
This whole section here.
The interesting thing is that in both of these so far, the Rycat structure is very, very close to water, very, very, very close to even the most conservative estimate of where the water was going to be for creating a natural harbor. So,
should I pull up the Rycat structure map again, just so you can see where it is in relation to this?
Yeah. It's kind of hard to describe, because I mean, none of this is all conjecture. None of this is exact. But also Plato would, in Plato's time, in Plato's time, the Sahara was already a desert. It was a very dangerous desert in his time, because you couldn't just load up the Jeep with the trailer full of water, and you didn't have a lot of options. So there's the Reikat structure.
And then, so all that would have been lakes, a chain of lakes almost leading to that spot.
Well, if you put a chain of lakes across there,
and I'm going to switch back.
And if you use a more aggressive estimate and put a chain of lakes across there, then that entire northern section of Africa is now an island. It is now an island.
Yeah.
So if you read Plato's description, Plato's describing something that's 9,000 years old. And it's like if I say to Lisa, oh hey, let's go let's go to the store, I don't have to tell her where it is. I don't even really have to say what store I'm referring to. We know which ones are the closest, right? You leave if you think you know where something is, or if that detail is not important to you, you leave it out. So Plato was very clear that Atlas, that Poseidon raised up Atlantis to house his wife. Atlas was given the rule of Atlantis and the surrounding area, that the other 9 sons were given rule of other kingdoms. It's not talking about a single city. It's talking about a confederation of kingdoms. It's not saying that Atlantis was an island. It's saying that there was an island. There was a chain of islands. Each son was given his own island to rule. And from there they grew, took over Libya, which was the entire northern section of Africa. The Atlas Mountains are just to the north of that.
Wait. The lake farthest right is where that structure is this far? Or
very left? Close, yeah. Yeah, the farthest left, yes.
Farthest left, though.
Farthest left, yeah. So on the western coast. It's very, very close to there. So it's like, wait a second. If I'm an ancient people, and I need a safe harbor, and I have access, and I know that there's a natural land formation, and this is just logic. This has got nothing to do with conspiracies. It's got nothing to do with Atlantis. It's got nothing to do with anything. I'm living 11,000 years ago when this is what the Sahara looks like, and I'm living on the edge of a lake that probably has a river or some other access going out to the sea, and I know that there is something in the desert that's a nice big circle, and if I can get a bunch of guys together and hollow out channels, I can have a defensible fortress on the water. I'm looking at her going, on the water. So, okay. There is 1,000%. There's this thing. Okay, so there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that this structure was used as a natural harbor at any point in history when the Sahara water levels brought lakes and ocean access near enough to make it worth digging out channels and putting in a defensible structure. The logic it is not a reasonable argument to say that this has existed for this long and nobody's tried to turn it into something. Like in Europe, they put fortresses at the top of giant cliffs. It would be asinine of any culture living in that area to not do it, to not at least try. It doesn't have to be Atlantis, but there was something there, and people say that was impossible. That's just nuts. Here is the most aggressive example of what. Oh, sorry, honey, I could have warned you. Here's the most aggressive example of what they think the water levels might have looked like 11 to 12,000 years ago. Oh yeah, no, Barbara, I'm the same way. I don't say left or right. I just point. This is, and this was off of I got this off of a very conspiracy heavy page, and I don't want to say anything derogatory. That does seem a little extreme, but it does show that, these are where the high spots are. If it looked this aggressive back 12,000 years ago, yeah, this one does seem far-fetched, but Nobody's going to, even though it's far-fetched, nobody's going to advocate for it if it doesn't have a potential to have some possibility. I do think it's very likely. I'm sorry, I do think that this is very unlikely, but I think it's very interesting.
I think the previous one's the most likely.
I think
with a bit more water connecting. I think lakes.
Basically, I think the previous one is way more interesting. The second one I think is more interesting.
That's the most interesting one.
But I do think the reality is not this extreme. But again, what I think somebody's done with this one.
Oh, did you want me to put it
back? Oh, no. What I think somebody's done with this really aggressive one, there's this map that you used to be able to, I don't know if you can still access it online, to say, what will this area look like with this much water? And I think they've just maxed it and went like that. But the interesting thing is that even with that extreme, the area where the Reikat structure is still on what would assumedly be a coastline and above water. That's why I found it interesting, because I mean, this is I think from something else. I think this is basically like sea level rising maps and stuff like that. But anyway, so I think it's incredibly likely. Let's assume that there were 10 kingdoms. Yeah, it's really not that surprising considering our current climate state with melting polar caps, and we've yeah, it could still be somewhere in the middle of this and the one that was before. See, I think at about 12,000 years ago, we still had significant ice caps, north and south. We still had a lot of water locked up. So the sea levels would actually probably have been a little tiny bit lower, but the prevailing, I really don't know how tiny, a tiny bit, maybe even a couple hundred feet, I don't know. But at that time, what they're saying is that at that time also we have like the Earth tilt changing. So this is an issue not necessarily of sea levels, but of prevailing winds. So you get prevailing winds bringing more moisture to the area, creating lakes. A lot of these areas are below sea level. That tells you something right there. Why are these areas below sea level? And if they are below sea level, why are they not already full of water? And this is prevailing winds, evaporation, things like that. As things evaporate, if you like the Dead Sea was not always a dead sea. It was dead. It died because of the change in the climate. Anyway, so to Babylon, my pet theory is that there was definitely something there. It's a good case for being Atlantis. I think that if there were lakes and landmass, if there were lakes this size throughout that region, I think there'd be a lot more water up there. I think you'd find significant river systems. And like if you separate a piece of land with a big enough river, it is now an island. So I think, and they believe the Sphinx was much older because of water erosion on it, which they said would have made it about 12,000 years ago. Yeah, and they deny it. They say, oh, that's not possible. There's no way. The Sphinx was only built 4,000 years ago. And it's like the Sphinx has water damage, shows signs of liquid water having eroded its base. And the only way that's going to happen is if the Sphinx was built 12,000 years ago. There's no other way, but no, that didn't happen. But yeah, okay. So basically babbling on. Babbledy babbled. I love babbling. I don't know why. Lisa just looks at me like this is story time every time I get onto one of these tangents. So if you make this, I don't think you need to make the amount of water aggressive. I think what you need to recognize is that if this was a realistic representation of the kind of water bodies you would expect to find 12,000 years ago, that significant river systems connecting them all together would make an area like the Reikat structure. It would make it reasonable to use it as a water-based, and right now, like in Vancouver, we have the Port of Vancouver. You have to come up the Juan de Fuca Street. You have to go through a whole lot of stuff to get to the Port of Vancouver. It's a very sheltered port, and you're not going to put your busy ports. Ooh, I love that. Lisa's telling you guys to subscribe and stuff. I'm sorry. I'm just going to sit over here babbling. Okay. So that's my pet theory. My pet theory is that the best. My pet theory is that yeah, my church taught that this planet was created only 6,000 years ago. Oh, poppycock, you know that's poppycock, don't I? I'm gonna look at my screen. I'm not even gonna look at you guys anymore. I'm so horrible. Okay, so I kind of believe two things. I believe that sailing past the Rock of Gibraltar is going to take you 12,000 years ago to a whole bunch of islands. I think it's going to take, I think the Sahara is going to be pretty green because just the weather, as sea levels rise and fall, weather patterns change dramatically. They know this. We're watching it happen now. So I think what you're going to find is that what Plato was talking about was, okay, here's Atlantis and here's what it looked like. Oh, and by the way, the kingdom, the whatever, like, because Athens was part of Greece, but Athens was its own city-state. So I think he looked at Atlantis the same way. And I think you're going to find the truth is going to be that wherever the city was kind of one thing, and wherever the islands and the chain of islands and the size and scope of the islands that make up the rest of the kingdom is a second thing. So I don't know. I think, and I also think that if you are, we see this in almost every culture. If one city in a kingdom, if one city in a kingdom or whatever builds their stuff this way, then almost all the other cities that are connected to that do it the same way, because ancient architecture, you don't just change, you'd stick with what works. So it's entirely possible that the Reikat structure is one city, Donana is another city. Ooh, now in this island of Atlantis, there was a great and wonderful empire. See? In the island of Atlantis, which had the rule over the whole island and several others, and over parts of the continent. And furthermore, the men of Atlantis had subjugated the parts of Libya. And again, we showed you earlier that Libya was almost the entire North Africa at that time, and of Europe as far as Tyrrhenia, which was Italy.
No, wait. Furthermore, the men of Atlantis had subjected the parts of Libya within the columns of Heracles as far as Egypt. And
yes, within the columns of Heracles as far as Egypt. And of Europe as far as Tyrrhenia, which was Italy. This vast power gathered into one endeavored to subdue at a blow our country and yours and the whole of the region within the straits. That's the Mediterranean. That's the entire coastal region of the Mediterranean. And then Solon, because this was a story that was told to Solon, and this is what Plato is repeating. Your country shone forth in the excellence of her virtue and strength among all mankind. And of course, in whoever wins, the winner writes the histories. So this was a thing. But yeah, I mean, I think you'll find that, like, when the Egyptians built structures, they tended to stick with a certain pattern. When the Italians built structures, like when Rome built structures, they tended to stick with a certain pattern. Greek, they all did it. So I think you're going to find that when you once people start acknowledging where the proof of the existence of an Atlantis, of the kingdom of Atlantis, the empire that Atlantis ruled, once they start to recognize that empire was real, they'll start to recognize circular cities are probably going to pop up everywhere. Because it makes sense. If you're a seafaring people, which they were supposed to have been, yeah, not the same as far as age, but castles and cathedrals have similar construction. Pyramids in Egypt and South America, you are right. I am. Oh, thank you, Wellsong. So I think if you're going to, if you find you're not, these are not cultures that can waste time experimenting with shit. If this works, we're going to keep doing it. We're going to keep doing it as long as it keeps working. You don't want to gather like we don't know we don't know how advanced or evolved these civilizations might or might not have been. So there's that. Anyway. Yeah, when the U.S. builds structures, they roll in the shape of a Walmart. Exactly. Why you're not? You don't. They're thinking about building up who they are, not like, oh, let's just be like, we have the luxury of being artistic now, but you don't know when, where, or how their structures were first built. So, yeah. Anyway, so I find it interesting. I think Edgar Cayce was dead on. I think Bimini is. I think Bimini is the western area of the actual Atlantis, the empire of Atlantis, the empire that Atlantis rules. I think the Reikat structure was one of their ports. I think Donana is probably going to turn out to be another one of their ports. And yeah, it's just, I don't know. I think I also do have to go. My tablet's at 17%, and I don't have an extra battery pack.
It'll be okay.
I'll be fine. It'll be okay. I don't have anything to plug it into unless I switch over to my phone. But they had an ancient Walmart in Atlantis. Maybe they did. I don't know. Yeah, the island of Atlantis disappeared into the depths of the sea. But again, the island that Atlantis was on versus the kingdom / empire of Atlantis. Hey, I know what I can do. I know what I can do. I know what I can do. You guys have to look at.
Oh my goodness!
Look at Lisa.
Look
at Lisa for a minute.
You better move that right now, or I'm divorcing you.
Just a minute.
Oh my God!
Just a minute. Just a minute. You're fine. You love me.
You're gonna die. A
You
horrible
love
death.
me.
I'm not even kidding. I'm gonna murder you.
Is that one okay? Or is that the one I want? There. Oh, she's gonna so hurt me. Oh, I think this thing stopped. There we go. I'm sorry. I'm mean. I basically I've got a power pack and I went and got it. And then I tried not to be, I was actually trying not to be an asshole, but then it was like tangled. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm trying hard to be sorry and to hurry at the same time. Anyway. Oh yeah, I'm dead, Jamie. I am so dead. That was only supposed to last for 5 seconds, if that. And I screwed it up by not realizing that the power pack was tangled up, and I'm very sorry.
You could have moved it immediately. Brat.
Well, that's a different problem. Lisa is Princess Lisa. I'm in trouble because she's not.
I'm wearing clothes.
I'm in trouble because Lisa's not feeling well, and who wants to be on camera when they're not feeling well? She's actually doing okay. She's doing okay. She's not dying. Anyway, so that's okay. So I think they sent you know how they do those things where they send down for cores? They sent down doing cores in like the middle of the Atlantic, and we're pulling up artifacts. But you know, Atlantis couldn't possibly be real. Anyway, any questions? Oh. Yeah, Peggy, do you think Atlantis is in the capital or seat of their empire sunk? I think the city of Atlantis sunk or something happened. I think that for various reasons, and let's face it, the Mediterranean's had like Krakatoa someplace else, Mount Vesuvius. There's tons of volcanic activity throughout the Mediterranean. So I think a big enough catastrophe could really, a big enough catastrophe like Pompeii was buried in a single event. I think that over time, various islands getting sunk into the sea as the sea levels rise, earthquakes, various natural phenomenon, the Sahara drying out, areas being abandoned. I think certain key military I mean, when they say, oh, this sunk, it's like if your biggest key military outpost sinks and most of your military goes under the water, then to all intents and purposes, the entire kingdom has gone under the water because now there's just nothing left politically, socially, in terms of structure. So, because that's what happened, Moses and the Dead Sea. Oh, well, you guys go through this thing in the Dead Sea, and then when you're through it, Moses parted the water, the people escaped, and then when the Egyptian army, this is the biblical story, when the Egyptian army was in the middle of the Red Sea, Moses went and knocked it all back together and let the sea drown the army. The reason why the Egyptians didn't chase them is because they had no army left. So I kind of went on a tangent with that, but basically what I mean is what few references exist talk about the breaking up of Atlantis as if that was a separate event from the army being swallowed up by the sea, from the city disappearing. So I think we're talking about multiple events over possibly hundreds of years, because Plato wouldn't have known, and he didn't really state that he did. He just stated that this was a story he's repeating that he heard that was a 9,000-year-old story. So, and I think there's plenty of things that we talk about now from our current modern perspective, that if an outsider who didn't know the details were to hear about it, would go, what are you talking about? I don't understand. So yeah, anyway, I think I'm worn out now. Bruno's here though. Bruno's here. He's Shayla's snoring. My God, I wish you guys could hear this. Shayla's over there just huh? And what do you guys think? What are you looking at me for? She's looking at me.
I'm not looking at you. I'm looking at my screen.
So what do you guys think? Oh my God. Shayla's over here. She's trying to get my attention. Look away. Don't make eye contact. Come here, baby. Come here and say hi. There's my buddy. There's my boy.
Bruno.
Yeah, I think the same thing. Amethyst Ascension says, yep, and that is why stories lived on by oral history passed down from family to family and maybe elaborated on, but some level of truth, I would think. Snoring Ewok is the next topic. I think basically as according to Plato, and again, this is like the most, he has had the most to say on the topic, but according to Plato, Solon traveled to Egypt. The priests in the temple at Sias basically were the keeper of the lore. The interesting thing is that, oh, and there was one other reference. There was another reference I meant to bring up. There was mention of Atlantis in documents that were found in this one city, and this city was basically the ancient Greek equivalent of a university town.
You either need to bring the camera closer to you or tip it down because it's like we're just getting the top of your head. There we go. Better.
Is that better, guys?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's why I screwed it up. I am way down here. Yeah. Well, I mean, Edgar Cayce. I mean, I think Edgar Cayce had too much to say that was proven to be true for us to just dismiss everything he had to say. And according to him, ooh, what are we thinking for the next topic? That's something that Keeper of the Borg. Who said Borg?
I missed it. So.
I don't know. I don't know what I said. I just spout off with shit. You know me.
Next topic.
But yeah, this one's town. I have it written in that list, but I'm not. It was started with an O. Anyway, there's supposed to be records of this at this one town that was essentially an extensive library. Because turns out Library of Alexandria was not the biggest or the best. It was just simply the most famous library of the time. Well, Erica has to go to bed soon. Okay, people have to start heading off to bed. Tomorrow's a work day. So what do we want the next topic to be, guys? You guys want to let Lisa and I decide? You want to be surprised? Well, you know what? We were supposed to write all that stuff out. I don't know how we've managed to screw this up 3 weeks in a row to get everything that was previously suggested written out and just draw from a hat, and we still haven't done that. It's too close to Christmas. It's too close to Christmas. Even every time I have 5 minutes for something, I've got something else that needs to be done more.
We've got one person saying Edgar
Cayce.
One person saying Antarctica General Bird and Operation High Jump.
Ooh, that would be an interesting one.
One person saying Edgar Cayce.
Edgar Cayce? I know more about him. That'll be easier. I'm not trying to be lazy, guys. It's just too close to. It's too close to Christmas. It's too close to Christmas to. If it's too close, abduction. Oh, like alien abduction?
Yeah, because Dustin wants to be scared.
Dustin wants to be scared with alien abduction? Oh my God, we got a lot of topics.
I wasn't blowing it off. We could talk.
Oh, I don't need a break, Erica. It's fine. Abduction is an interesting topic because there are so many people that are reported being abducted. And yeah, it's fairies is interesting. I just don't know I don't have an obligation to talk for this long.
No, we're over 2 hours now.
Yeah. Antarctica and like an alien connection.
You're gonna have to look that one up.
There's a connection. There's theories about Antarctica being connected to to Atlantis, because there are theories some of the conspiracy type theories that exist are that Atlantis as an empire was over 100,000 years old, which would put it being in existence and advanced at the same time that portions of Antarctica were still ice free. There's also theories that they were an alien colony. There's theories that they were from another dimension. There's theories that they still exist in an underground. There's theories that the original city survived in an underwater like Man from Atlantis type stuff.
Next topic, focus.
So yeah, so there's a lot of theories on that.
Next topic.
Okay, next topic.
Are you gonna do Edgar Casey, or are you gonna do something else?
Oh no, that would be an interesting one. Okay, sorry. Some of these ones, yeah. Okay, do we want to do Edgar Casey as a general topic, or do we want to focus on anything in particular, or do we want to like vote in the comments? Red giant people. Red giant people are supposed to be Atlanteans. That's a whole mummies. Oh my God. Okay, we got a whole bunch of people that are saying. Dustin just wants to do scary stuff. Scary stuff is fine. Let's do Edgar Casey because we've already had more of that than anything else. And I will try to get off my ass and actually cut these up and put them into a hat. And I was also thinking about doing there's some of these ones that are actually really cool topics, but I'm not sure if I personally would be able to talk for more than a few minutes. We were talking about this, like doing maybe short 10 to 15 minute videos on some of the stuff that I don't know very much about, just as an opportunity to discuss it in the comments. Did I say that right? I think I said that right. I don't know. I'm not sure. Oh, Dustin wants to scare Erica. That's why.
Hey, Erica started it sending aliens to Dustin's place.
Okay, Amethyst Ascension has to go, and I know Erica has to get to bed.
We have a puppy that wants to go outside too.
Yeah, red giants are definitely one I want to talk about. Let's do Edgar Casey. Let's do Edgar Casey next week because I'm seeing that more than anything else right now. And then we will hopefully get our shit together and make this selection process a lot easier next time. Okay, and we got to go. Thank you for. Do you want to go or do you want to stay? She is just looking at me like, dude, we need dinner. Okay, we're gonna get going. Thank you everybody for showing up. It's been fun. Don't forget the thumbs up, or I'm gonna have to do voodoo hexes next time. Just a warning. No.
Don't joke about that.
I'm sorry. I'm just being an ass.
You should apologize.
Have a great night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.